Well, welcome to the podcast. Today I'm very privileged because I get to work with Leanne Hopkins, and I have so much respect for Leanne and what she does for people, and we're going to learn a lot. Leanne, what is it you actually do for people? What benefit do you give people?
Great question. I guess we've got two angles. So we have two companies. One is Succeed Healthcare Solutions, and our vision is to create a world where families thrive. And so we mainly run group-based therapy, particularly for conditions like autism and ADHD. We try and teach what every human would benefit from. And our other business is Succeed Practice Management. So we offer offshore support for back office tasks at half the price. And we also have some business coaching, leadership coaching, and therapy and allied health assistant coaching as well. And really our goal there is to create a world where the business owners thrive as well as their families. So it's a similar ethos.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Leanne, I guess you and I are very similar in that we watch directors go through a lot of pain, a lot of needless pain. You know, we watch the long hours they have when they feel trapped. Oh, they don't have a choice. No, you do have a choice. We watch the sense of one of the leading reasons marriages are breaking up is because people go, oh, it's because of infidelity or it's because of this or that. It's like, no, it's financial pressure that absorbs the joy that could be there. And you and I see those things in the same light. What are some ways that you make sure that your life is on track? Because you're running not one, but two businesses, and yet your life is on track. You were telling me before about how you love to go swimming in the ocean a lot. So how do you look after yourself and how do you practice what you preach?
Yeah, look, I think the values that we talked about earlier is really important. So I think it's important for people to know what their top values are for them as a human so they know how to live their best life. And then I think it's about making decisions that align with that. So with our example of ocean swimming, it aligns with so many values that also my business shares around vitality and mastery and belonging and things like that. But basically for me, the key in terms of reducing my work hours and increasing revenue at the same time was probably multifactorial. The biggest one was getting off the tools as a therapist. I do step in here and there, but pretty much it's about having the right system so that the business can run itself. And then we're freed up to sort of do what we love.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. So how did you come up with these 10 values you're talking about? What are your 10 values in the most, I guess, cafe language form? And how did you come up with what your values are? Because everyone talks about, I'm a new provider, I have these values. Honestly, they're copied and pasted. Like when you actually live out of what the values are you've come up with for yourself, it's different. Like for you as a human, what are your values?
Yeah, so I think, I touched on earlier a little bit around the vitality, mastery, belonging. I've got a number of other ones as well. I'll have to think what they are because normally they roll off my tongue. But the way I came up with them was I did a mind tools exercise. So it was actually part of a prerequisite for a course in my government job. And so Mind Tools still has it available. Unfortunately, it used to be just you could just jump on the website and find it. Now you've got to sign up for a free 7-day trial to access it. It sort of takes you through things like past life experiences to help you refine it down further. But basically, it's a list of values, and there's other ones like joy and things like that, and fun stuff like that. And so then it's about having a look at your life, and what you're doing is what you're doing aligning with that. And so that was when I had a big wake up moment.
What did that wake up moment look like?
It looked like I need to find different work because I spend most of my life in my job. Do I really want to do this until retirement age when it's not exciting me and it's not aligning with who I am as a person? And of course, no, that's not how I wanted to live my life. So pretty risky. We obviously Succeed Healthcare Solutions has been around since 2010. I ditched my very safe government essential worker job in the peak of COVID and launched full-time into Succeed Healthcare Solutions, group-based therapy at a time when everyone was locking down. We were very lucky to be in Brisbane. So it really wasn't a big deal for us. And honestly, none of our team or clients at the time really got COVID, which was amazing. And we grew in that time. It was not a problem. So it sounds very silly, and I'm generally a very measured, wise person, but it just seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah, you gave it a crack. I grew my provider business hugely in COVID. It was the best,
Yeah.
the most helpful thing in terms of business growth, because it meant that all the people who lacked imagination disappeared for a while. There was so much demand. And
And the thing is that the need doesn't disappear just because, prices comes about doesn't mean that the, things that are going on in people's lives just disappear. They keep going and sometimes can get worse.
yeah, absolutely. Well done. I love your creativity. Both you and I do business coaching for people. So I think I've probably coached, I don't know, 30 something people. You've coached at least that many people, probably more. A lot of people are hesitant to get a business coach when they do need one. Now, in NDIS world, the number one business coach, in my opinion, by a country mile, is Paul Bryan, because he doesn't just coach people, but he also puts them into programs where they have peers who are also on the same growth journey. I think that's so valuable.
Yeah.
And for your stock standard NDIS businesses, your average SIL provider or your average community access, I would just say, don't talk to Leanne or Michael, go and talk to Paul Bryan. He's your guy. There are businesses that are quirky that don't fit that, though, where people actually need one-on-one coaching or where they just don't fit the mold. You and I can think of so many businesses like that. Auditors, for example, or coaches themselves. Why is there such a hesitancy with people about actually being real about their business, whether it's, say, in a bigger program like Paul Bryan or whether it's a one-on-one coach? Why the hesitancy to not be open, not be real about what people are really facing?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There is an amount of vulnerability and honesty that's required. I think some people are honestly scared of facing the truth. If maybe things aren't as rosy as they hope. And when you see a business coach, we need to know the numbers. We need to know where things are really at to get a good baseline to make a proper plan to move forward. There is the cost. So some people see it as a cost rather than an investment. So you really need to see that return on investment. And I think a lot of people have been burnt or heard, the disaster stories about seeing coaches. And honestly, I know a lot of people who've tried the sort of the main coaches who are out there and haven't found it's answered their real questions. And so they're probably left feeling like a bit concerned about trying something different. So they're the sorts of, I guess, the concerns out there, but I think all of those can be overcome.
Yeah, I get that. And you and I as coaches, we have coaches for us. So I have two business coaches. Like people are like, why do you have two business coaches? Well, one deals with these bits and one deals with these bits of my life. And honestly, without them, I would be way less profitable, because a good business coach isn't like, here's how you think. A good business coach is like, what are you facing? Oh, what are your thoughts about that? Oh, what could you do about that? And before you realize it, you've got solutions. I remember there was one time that one of my business coaches said, you're putting 80% of your time over here. What if you put more time over there? And I did that, and I probably doubled my profitability in a month. And I'm not stupid, but I couldn't see it because it was like, how do you grow your own skills if you're a coach?
Look, it's very interesting. I have definitely had coaches in the past. My experience, according to my bottom line in Xero, is that when I've had coaches, our growth has slowed. And because of that cookie cutter model that I know we've talked about in the past. And when I backed myself, our growth has gone astronomically, exponentially. So I guess that builds confidence that maybe we know a few clues on how to move forward. So for me, what I find is, yes, we still use whatever we can from people we've learnt from in the past. Honestly, a big one is high quality audiobooks, and just implementing what we know. And the biggest thing is honestly just getting off the tools so that you can think clearly about the business and make a path forward without burning yourself out or, damaging family relationships and things like that. So I've had probably, I don't know if you could say that my journey has been common or uncommon, but that's the one I've experienced. I am still a huge believer in having coaches at the right time for the right thing. And there will be times in the future where I'm sure I'll link back in as circumstances change and we transition and grow, and environment and context and politics and all those sorts of things change. Certainly, if we went into like a new revenue stream, that's a time where I would be looking at least peer support. Peer support's a really big one, like you mentioned earlier, and that's something that we're big on. That's why we run groups and Succeed Healthcare Solutions. And even with our burnout coaching that we do and with our business model, it's all about you need to link in with your peers. It's really important.
Wow. I'm so excited to hear what you're saying with your burnout coaching. Got to ask about that in a moment. I love how you and I have very different approaches. Like for you're saying when you back yourself, it tends to pay off. For you, it's like the input to you is what you're reading on audiobooks. Whereas for me, a lot of my input is bouncing ideas off people who are usually 20 years older than me, who've been doing this longer. I also love reading books. Like I probably consume about 50 business books a year.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else do you fall asleep at night? I don't know. I guess I love what you're doing. Can you talk to us about getting off the tools? Most people, particularly say if they're in allied health or somewhere that's serious dollars per hour, they're like, I don't want to get off the tools. We need my income to cover us for those hard times. It's like, sure, but how are you going to grow if you then don't put any time into leadership or marketing? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
I think people need true answers on how to do it. I think business owners, including in allied health, are very smart. And I think they would get off if they knew how, and they try and find out how, and there are very few answers on how to do it. I think there's a lot of fluffy talk about optimizing everything, but the bottom line doesn't change, so the business owner is stuck. And so we are huge fans of the group-based model. We are huge fans of allied health assistants. And we basically have that McDonald's mentality with running a business so that it's not reliant on a particular person's skill set in order to achieve great results. We measure everything with our clients to make sure what we're doing is effective. We also do the survey feedback. And so I think it's having the answers, to be perfectly honest, and also teaching business owners how to understand Xero, how to use it, and how to make decisions based on it. So a lot of it is around that financial literacy, which sometimes they can shy away from, and not being afraid to talk about money and to talk about profits. It's okay to do that because that's how we keep helping more people. And same with if it's just the business owner helping people, you can help less people. Whereas if we can create a scalable model that's efficient and effective, then we can help more people, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a couple of things that you're talking there. So one of them is you're saying you measure everything, because the things that you measure, you can track. The things that you track, they'll get attention. You can put it on a notice board. You can make sure that each week your key people are seeing, well, how many new clients do we have this week? How many do we lose? We followed up everyone we lost. What were the reasons? Are they things in our control? But if you're not tracking, you're not measuring, then you're just flying blind, like driving a car with your eyes closed. A lot of people resist that because it takes time to set up that measuring, and they're too busy being on the tools. We can see where this goes, right? What are some of your tips for what you measure with your clients and what things you put in place to measure?
Yeah, great question. What we recommend that businesses do is have a look at that sort of pipeline that, are we looking at the pre-brand awareness, pre-pain awareness level, all the way through to someone who's been with the service, exited and come back? Pick a point in that pipeline to focus on. And the way we work that out is by looking at the numbers. Where have we got the best opportunity to make increases? So let's say, for example, we're getting quite a few inquiries who are aligned with what the business does and the niche there. But let's say the conversions aren't as good as they could be. Okay, so let's maybe focus on the front end of that pipeline, around how to optimize that to increase conversions. And that way we can get easy wins without having to do a whole bunch of extra marketing. Or it may be that, for example, the retention, for whatever reason, isn't what it could be. How can we make sure that we are providing a service that retains people without over-servicing?
Sure.
And so that way, that's how I choose or help business owners choose the metrics to follow. So the metrics inform where we start, then we continue to monitor those metrics to make sure that the plan is working. And we use a 3X growth model. It's a signature solution that we designed. And the whole premise is that for any time or money that a business owner spends on something, it should return 3 times, return on investment, whether that's the time or the money. If businesses don't aim for that, I think that's how they end up not running profitably, because you may not achieve 3 times, but you need to have the goal of 3 times. Otherwise, I think you run at a break even or a loss, which we know 55% of OT businesses do. That's really sad. That's they're doing charity work without the charity concessions. So that's a real passion of mine to try and turn that around.
I love that. So, Leanne, what I'm hearing you say, because not everyone listening to this is a director, and let's like really reduce the terminology there to, at bare minimum, you're looking at a business, you're looking at where are things not working, and it might be, say, turning interested people into genuine clients, right? And you're saying you look at what the data says, so you're looking at, well, why do we only have a 20% rate, a 20% of the people who come to us end up booking in? Why is that? How do we fix that? Because almost everything has a straightforward solution if you can pinpoint where it's not solved. It could be that the admin lady doesn't have the training. It could be that she's scared of picking up the phone. Who knows? And you're talking about what's going to lead to the greatest conversions, like what's going to lead to the biggest change. And what I love about that is that you're not just looking at one little thing like, oh, how many people started with this week? You're looking at the whole journey from they discovered us, they got in contact with us, they had their first session with us. You're looking at it like that. And business owners are scared to do that because they're like, if I open that lid, I'm going to find I have to get rid of a staff member or try to train an almost untrainable staff member. But I'm hearing the systematic way you do that. I'm really impressed. Like, well done.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's where it ties into, and I know you'll be familiar with this, your 90-day visions, or some people will call it 120-day vision. And for me, we look at that pipeline, where's the biggest win we can get, whether it's reducing costs the most or increasing revenue the most. And then we work out the 90-day vision based on that. I do think the 120 days has value. So you do your 90-day vision, you have a month to sort of consolidate, maybe catch up anything, any loose ends, make a plan for the next 90 days, or take a break for a while and focus on a particular project and then revisit. And sometimes it does mean, if you look at the numbers and you've got team members where you've tried to optimize things and it's not achieving the 3 times return on investment, you might have to look at changing that, whether it's training for them or whether it's changing their role or whether it's letting them go. It's hard conversations, but they're conversations you need to have.
Yeah. And if you don't have the hard conversation with that staff member, you're going to be having it with your spouse.
Exactly.
I'd much rather have it with a staff member. Also, I love what you're saying about 3 times. You want to get 3 times the return on anything you do. And so an example of that would be, there's a guy who wanted me to business coach him about a year ago. And I said, no. I'm like, for me, my number's 5, Leanne. Okay. For you, it's 3 across the board. For me, there's only specific areas, but it's got to be 5 times. I'm like, I can't guarantee that guy's going to get 5 times back what he pays for me in profit, not revenue, profit. Okay. So I said, no, sorry, I can't help you because I'm not right for you right now. And then 6 months ago, he's like, Michael, I'm struggling with A, B, and C. Can you coach me? And I looked at his revenue and went, if I can't return him 5 times what he pays me, I'm not interested. Obviously, I'm more diplomatic in how I say that. And then about a month ago, he's like, can you coach me? And I'm like, what's your revenue now? And he told me, I'm like, mate, we can solve so much of your drama now. And because you and I, Leanne, can go and look at someone's businesses, we know there's probably only like 5 key areas would be the things we look at the first time we talk with them. I think I might have saved him about 80 grand, 90 grand this financial year just in one area alone. And I've only met with him and his offsider once. Him once, his offsider once. He's like, Michael, why did you wait 6 months, 12 months? It's because I don't want to work with someone unless I know, hand on heart, they're going to be so delighted. And it's like, I guess that comes down to, like you're saying, you want a 3 times revenue across, 3 times impact across everything. Tell me about that. Because I think people, it's what stops people getting off the tools. Is they don't understand that they're here to multiply instead of add. What can we learn from you there, Leanne?
Look, I think one of the ways I try and simplify it, because sometimes it can feel overwhelming to quantify, is to just have a look at the revenue that the team bring in versus their wages plus super, just to strip it right back, because one of the biggest costs is often the wages and super on the zero file, if that's what you're with. And so that's a nice, easy way to pull data from your CRM and have a look at what the revenue was, say, for example, for a fortnight that lines up with the pay period, and then have a look at the pay and just see if that's matching up. That's just a nice way to start, and getting familiar with that, getting that process in place. I think that can just have a flow-on effect to so many other things, but just making it that simple and easy, and it's a big win area. And even, from your admin as well, it's not just your direct billable staff. You want your admin team also resulting in that 3 times return on investment through generating more revenue, basically, more appointments, more bookings, more services. So not just sitting there answering the phone and answering emails, but actually dedicating, I would say, at least a third of their day every day to generating additional revenue, even if it's from the current clients.
I love it. Are you talking about stuff that you're measuring and you're tracking what's working and you're solving what's not? Like, really good work. And it's interesting you say that, because something that I wish business owners would do more, or directors. Remember, we used to call them business owners. Now we call them directors. Like, well, let's come up with a new name next week. Long story short, though, is we're not measuring our wins. We're so focused on what's broken that we don't measure the wins. And then we wonder why we're tired, or I don't want to use the word burned out because it's so overused, but we're tired and a bit jaded and a bit like, it's so hard. Well, when was the last time you measured a win? So I had a really big win this morning. Another really key client, huge win. Got a text from him. I really want to just take a photo of that text and send it to my wife. So that, be like, look, there's purpose in what we're doing for people. And I didn't do it because it would have taken 15 seconds. It's like, that was a win. I should have celebrated that. I didn't. And something I do when I'm catching clients is I'll help them measure every 10K worth of additional profit or every 10K worth of savings. And then they need to go and celebrate with their family that night. Like, their family needs to be part of the celebration every time they have a big win. And some people, that's like every second week, especially in the early stages of coaching. But later, it might be once a month that your 10K wins. It's like, without the celebration, it doesn't feel like you're making progress, even though you are. How do you celebrate your own wins? Like, how do you celebrate the things that are going well so that you don't just get caught up in the day-to-day, Leanne?
Oh, absolutely. The wins are so important. I guess there's a few different ways. For us in our healthcare business, we have a Teams chat with our wins and celebrations. So we do encourage, if anyone ever talks about positive informal feedback from clients or about each other, we make sure that goes in the chat and we celebrate that together. And I definitely agree. It's important to feed those wins back to the family, because sometimes they hear about the struggles and they need to hear about the wins to sort of keep them on board. The other thing we do is, when we first have a look at taking on a client, we have a look at what their top 3 opportunities are, as well as their top 3 costs, essentially. So we're having a look at which of their services are resulting in the biggest revenue and profit, and perhaps which ones aren't, and then where their biggest 3 costs are, and can we work on that. And then that way you are looking at the wins. The other thing is, when we look at the metrics, let's say we're looking at conversions from inquiry to booking. Let's say those percentages are going up in terms of conversions. We're making sure we recognize that, even if it's through some color coding or something like that. Oh, wow, that's gone up. But again, similarly, if it's sort of gone down, can we understand how that's happened, and just making sure we're paying attention to that. So it's really important, because doing more of what works is what makes a business successful.
I love what you're saying. And we wouldn't treat our staff by coming out with all the negatives constantly and never giving a positive. We would have no staff. But we do that to ourselves. And then we wonder why we're not having the same joy in our work that we used to have.
Yeah, all of our team are trained. So basically we unlearn them when they come to us from uni.
Good work.
So half of their progress note is about the strengths that the client displayed according to a particular goal during the session. And then the other part is about where they may have benefited from support. So again, even the lens on how we look at clients, we get students coming to us like, I don't know what strength to say, because they haven't been trained to think like this. And so it takes them a while to understand and start to get the hang of it, which is really sad. And I think there's a lot of work to be done in universities on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you think, because no one wants to be hit over the head by numbers or by their boss. Like you said before, people need to consult the oracle of zero a little bit more often. Well, part of it is it's hard to face up to zero when it's going to say you haven't had a great couple of months, and I love that when you're coaching people, you actually look at their zero. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so clever. Why don't I do that? I don't know. Like, what sort of areas do you look at with them?
Yeah, it's really important to have a look at it. So we're having a look at not only your profit and loss, but your balance sheet, helping them understand that and making sure it's actually reflecting everything. Because I find often there are gaps between the verbal narrative I'm given and what's actually showing up in zero. So we actually need it to be an accurate reflection. And just seeing the confidence growing people who are understanding where to find the reports, how to run the reports, how to compare them to previous periods, to understand trends. It's actually really lovely to see. And the other way we work for the strengths as well is just doing our client surveys. It's so important to find out those wins as well.
Yeah. And like if you were running a five client business, you wouldn't be wondering what they're thinking. You'd know what they're thinking. But then when you're running a 50 client business or a 500 client business, you need a different way of finding out what they're thinking. And generally, the people who would feed you that information, they have an inherent bias. You know, your customers, or in our case, your participants, they don't want to be saying negative things unprompted. Your frontline admin staff don't want to be like, oh, there was some negative things here, because they feel like that makes them look bad. Somehow we have to change that culture in our business so that they look good when they bring a problem, as opposed to they look bad. But everything feels filtered. But if you're able to go to them and actually find out what's going on, and like I love your idea of, you know, the client giving surveys, and something that I love as well, Leanne, is getting the director to just make a few phone calls.
Yeah, it's important.
That's right, because I mean, if the CEO of McDonald's phoned me and said, hey, Michael, what are your thoughts? And I said to him, mate, do you know what cleaning products are? You know, I would love that opportunity, because he's got the authority to solve it, right?
Yes.
And people think, oh, I don't want to call them because I'm a director, they don't have a relationship with me. No, that's a self-deception. You don't want to call them because you don't want to put the time in, and also you're a bit worried about what they're going to say. Like, just get on the phone.
And that information we need, it's not the warm fuzzies, you know, as much as that helps with morale, it's the other stories we need to know.
Well, I think another day you and I should sit down and look at that one issue for a whole episode. What do you reckon?
Sounds amazing.
Thanks so much, Leanne. Leanne Hopkins, if you want to get in touch with her, she's at Succeed Practice Management, or send me a message on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time, Leanne.